We have prepared for war, and now war is here. We were established as one nation under God. He is at our back.
The Battle of Gettysburg was not only the largest battle of the American Civil War, but it was also a turning point for the Union. Up to this point, the Confederates had won nearly every battle, but the battles were taking place on their own soil and thus destroying their own countryside. Named George Meade. As the Battle of Gettysburg approached, President Abraham Lincoln sent word through the ranks to promote Meade to General of the Army of the Potomac. He was a general only 3 days before the Battle of Gettysburg. After the Battle of Antietam, the single bloodiest day in American history, Lee's plan is clear. He wants to march to D.C. Meade knows this and strategically places a force of around 85,000 men in his way. If Meade's force fails to stop the Confederates, the war may be over for them. A series of hills in Pennsylvania sets the scene for a bloody clash that changed American history.
Confederate troops were scattered along roads and trails advancing towards the town of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The two armies stumbled upon each other by accident and began the first day of fighting at Gettysburg. The undersupplied Confederate army was straggling to the town of Gettysburg to look for shoes and other supplies. Fighting broke out and the outnumbered Union army retreated back through the city to the higher ground. This higher ground along Cemetery Ridge, Culp's Hill, and Cemetery Hill gave the Union a decided advantage over the course of the battle. Day 2 of Gettysburg began with a Confederate attack on Cemetery Ridge. Meade's Union army formed a hook shape on the hills that proved to be a formidable defense. Reinforcements could easily be moved to defend the lines. The Confederate attack came slowly and Meade's army had plenty of time to dig in. At the end of the day, the Confederates gained minimal ground and men from both sides lay killed or wounded all over the battlefield. Lee's decision for one last-ditched effort to win the battle is what is most remembered about the fighting near Gettysburg. On day 3, Lee decided to attack the weary Union troops right at the heart of their line, where they would least expect it. Under the command of Confederate General Pickett, 15,000 men were ordered to charge up Culp's Hill to their deaths. The rebels were beaten back severely by only 5,700 Union infantrymen. The remaining rebels fixed bayonets and continued to charge up the hill to engage the enemy. In the failure of Pickett's charge, the rebels were forced to retreat. Lee's gamble hadn't paid off. The Confederate casualties totaled 28,000 while the Union lost 23,000 men. In the aftermath of the fighting, President Lincoln delivered a powerful address to dedicate a military cemetery at Gettysburg. Lincoln's address lasted a short 2 minutes, but his words spoke volumes about our still developing nation. 77 years ago, our fathers brought up forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus so far nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln, November 19th, 1863.
Was as close as the Southern Confederacy ever came to winning its independence. That marks a fork in the road, not only for American history, but in the history of human liberty. Our future hung in the balance one humid, hot summer day in Pennsylvania cornfields 150 years ago. That's why we go back and study it again and again, to understand where we came from and to think about where we might have gone.